You're a grown adult. You have a job, maybe kids, a mortgage. You handle real problems every single day. And then you go home, or your mom calls, or your sibling sends a text, and suddenly you're 13 years old, defensive, tight chest, saying things you swore you wouldn't say, reacting in ways that don't even make sense to you. And afterward, you think, what is wrong with me? I'm a fully functioning adult. Why does my family still do this to me? Nothing is wrong with you, but something is happening. And once you understand what it is, it changes everything. I'm Jody Lamb, and I spent most of my adult life being triggered by my family and having really no clear idea why. Today, I'm going to walk you through what's actually going on when your family gets under your skin and what you can do about it. Before we get into it, please know this video isn't about blaming your family. It's not about diagnosing anyone or cutting people off. It's about understanding yourself, because you can't change a pattern you don't recognize. And here's the thing no one told me for a really long time. Being triggered by your family isn't a sign that you haven't grown or that you're immature. It's actually evidence that you have changed, but the dynamic hasn't. And that gap between who you've become and who your family still expects you to be is where all the tension lives. So let's talk about why that gap exists, what's really happening when you get triggered, and what it looks like to handle it differently. If this is the kind of thing you think about, why you can't relax, why you feel responsible for everyone, why rest is selfish, I put together a free guide called The Blueprint You Never Got, and it's about how to start taking good care of yourself when you've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. The link is in the description of this video. Okay, here's the first thing to think about. When your mother makes a comment about your parenting, or your dad dismisses something you're excited about, or your sibling says something passive-aggressive at dinner, the reaction you're having is almost never about the words. It's about what those words meant to you when you were young and had no power. When you were a kid, your parents' approval or disapproval wasn't just emotional. It was survival level information. If mom is upset, that might mean the whole house goes sideways tonight. If dad is disappointed, that might mean I'm not safe. Your nervous system learned to monitor those signals like your life depended on it, because in a way it did. And here's the part that gets people. Your nervous system never got the memo that you grew up. It's still running that old software. It's what you learned. It's what you got wired with. So when your mom criticizes how you're loading the dishwasher, your adult brain knows it doesn't matter, but your nervous system hears the tone, the exact same tone from 30 years ago, and it hits the alarm. That's why your reaction feels so disproportionate. You're not overreacting to the present. You're having a perfectly appropriate reaction to the past. It's just happening in the wrong decade. I'll give you a personal example. My mom can say a sentence, or sometimes not even words. It's a sigh or silence, or the way that she looks at me in an angry way, and my whole body would go on alert. And I'd immediately start scanning, like, what did I do? What does she need? How do I fix this? I was like 40 years old and still doing the same thing I did when I was 10. Not because I was weak, but because my body remembered what happened when I didn't. It's my programming. My mother can make me react that way. But once I understood that, once I realized I wasn't reacting to the present moment, but to a pattern that got wired into me decades ago, it really helped shift a bit. Now, I still struggle with this. This does not mean that the triggers are stopped, but because I stopped thinking something was wrong with me for having them, I can deal with them better. Here's the second thing. Every family has roles. There's the responsible one, the funny one, the difficult one, the quiet one, the peacemaker. And these roles get assigned early, usually not because of who you actually are or who you want to be, but because of what the family needs you to be. If you're watching this video, I'd bet money that you were the responsible one, the one who held it together, the one who managed everyone's emotions, diffused the tension, cleaned up the mess. You became the person who the family could count on, and everyone was perfectly happy to let you keep doing that job forever. The problem is, you grew up. You started to realize maybe your whole life shouldn't revolve around managing other people. Maybe, and this is the big one I have to remind myself of all the time, your primary job in life is to actually take good care of yourself. And the moment that you start acting on that, your family feels it, and they push back. And it isn't necessarily with words. Sometimes it's guilt. Sometimes it's the silent treatment. Sometimes it's you've changed or you're being disrespectful in a tone that makes it very clear they don't mean it as a compliment. Here's what's actually happening. The family system is like a machine, and you were a load-bearing wall. It's what everything was leaning against. When you start to step out of your role, when you stop being the fixer, the mediator, the one who calls everyone and smooths everything over, the machine doesn't work the way that it used to. And instead of the system adapting, the system puts pressure on you to go back to your position. That pressure is what triggers you. It's not just that your brother said something annoying. It's that your brother said something that was designed, maybe not consciously, to pull you back into the role you've been trying to lead. And this is why family visits are so exhausting for you. You're not just spending time with people, you're fighting the gravitational pull of a role that you've been playing for decades. And every time you resist it, part of you feels guilty because that role is where you learned your worth. I really know that feeling so well. I spent years believing that if I wasn't holding everything together, I wasn't earning my place. That if I stopped managing my mom's chaos, I was abandoning her. And it took me a long time to understand that I wasn't abandoning her by taking care of myself. I was just finally doing the job I should have been given all along. So, now you join me in understanding these two things. Your nervous system is reacting to old data, and your family is pressuring you to stay in a role you've outgrown. But here's where it gets practical. The trigger itself, the comment, the tone, the guilt trip, that annoying facial expression, it's not actually your problem. Your problem is the pattern you run after the trigger fires. Let me explain. Like something happens, your mom says something, and then you do one of two things. Maybe you get defensive and snap back. Maybe you go silent and seethe for 3 days, like, I should have said something, I should have said this. Maybe you immediately start performing, being extra helpful, extra accommodating, trying to prove you're still the good one. Maybe you leave the room and call your partner to vent for an hour. Whatever your version is, it's a pattern. And that pattern was useful once. It kept you safe. It kept the peace. It helped you survive a situation where you had no control, but you're not in that situation anymore. And the pattern is no longer protecting you. It's running you. So what do you do instead? Here are a few things that have been helpful for me, and they might help you. First, name what's happening in real time. Literally say to yourself, even if it's silent, okay, this is a trigger. My nervous system thinks I'm in danger, but I'm not. And I'm an adult in a room with people who have opinions I don't have to manage. It's that simple. It's also incredibly hard to remember in the moment, which is why you have to practice it. Second, you buy yourself time. You do not have to respond immediately to anything your family says. You can say, let me think about that. You can excuse yourself to get a glass of water. You can take a breath. The urgency you feel, the pressure to act right now, that is the old pattern talking. In reality, almost nothing your family says at dinner requires an immediate response. And third, this is the big one. Stop trying to get them to see you differently. This is where so many of us get stuck. We think if we just explain ourselves well enough, if we just find the right words, our family will finally understand who we've become. They'll see that we've changed and they'll update their image of us accordingly. But most of the time, that's not going to happen. Not because they don't love you, but because seeing you differently means seeing the whole family story differently. And most people aren't ready to do that. You cannot control whether your family updates their understanding of who you are. You can only control whether you keep living by their old version of you. Fourth, decide what you're willing to do and what you're not before you walk in the door. Don't wait until you're triggered to find out your boundaries. Know before you go. How long are you staying? What topics are you not engaging with? What is your exit plan if things go sideways? Having a plan doesn't mean you're expecting the worst. It means you're taking good care of yourself, which, by the way, is your actual job. All right. I want to be super blunt about something. Healing doesn't mean your family stops triggering you. It doesn't mean that you become this calm, unbothered person who floats through Thanksgiving with some serene smile. Healing means the trigger fires and you don't lose yourself in it. You feel it, you recognize it, and you choose a different response. And sometimes that choice is messy. Sometimes you still snap. Sometimes you cry in the car on the way home. That's okay. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is to stop being pulled back into a version of yourself that you've outgrown and to start living like the adult you actually are, even when your family treats you like the kid you used to be. I do not have this figured out, and I'm often triggered by my mother and other members of my family, and it challenges me to keep working on this. But I'm sharing what I've learned along the way, what's worked, what hasn't, and what I wish someone had told me years ago. The most helpful thing to remember for me is that my first job was always taking care of myself, not managing my mom, not holding the family together, not performing fine for everyone else's comfort. And your first job is taking care of yourself too, even when, especially when, your family makes that feel impossible. If this video hit home for you, I want you to know something. The fact that you recognize yourself in any of this is a sign that you grew up in a situation that required you to become someone the family needed. And now you're doing the brave, uncomfortable work of figuring out who you actually are outside of that role. You're not broken. You just didn't get the blueprint, and you can build one now. If you want help with that, I made a free guide called The Blueprint You Never Got. It's a starting point for learning how to take care of yourself when nobody ever taught you how. The link is in the description. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. I make videos about what it looks like to stop putting everyone else first and start building a life you actually enjoy, especially if you're starting from scratch. Let me know in the comments how you're working on all of this. I'll see you in the next one.